Alright guys, muy buenos dias. I hope that you had a really good Christmas break and you're ready to be back at school and learn and all that good stuff. As I think I told you guys before break, yo no voy a estar en la escuela hoy, mañana o viernes. Okay, so I'm not going to be at school today, tomorrow, or Friday because I'm visiting my family in the Middle East, but I'll be back on Monday to see you guys then and hopefully hear all about your Christmas break. So hoy vamos a trabajar en un repaso del primer semestre. Okay, so today we're going to be working on a review of first semester. There's a couple reasons for this. One of them being that I know that our background as far as Spanish 1 is different for some of you guys, depending on who you had last year or depending on when you took Spanish 1 and things like that. I just kind of want to cover all our bases and hopefully fill in any gaps in your knowledge or your memory that you may have, okay? Also, this will just be a really good review of things you learned in Spanish 1 and then also last semester in Spanish 2, because I know over break, Spanish maybe faded to the back of your memory somewhere, so let's pull it back to the forefront and kind of focus on some of the stuff that hopefully you already know, okay? Also, we're going to tackle some of the common mistakes I saw kind of coming up a couple different times in the IPA, which is super important because, as I think I've told you guys before, stuff never goes away in Spanish, okay? So the stuff that you learned in Spanish 1 comes into play in Spanish 2, and the stuff that you learned in Spanish 2 will come into play all the way through Spanish 4 if you decide to take it up that far, okay? So really quickly, how this video is going to work is I'll go over quickly like a grammar review or a little short lesson, and then you'll be able to pause the video, do a quick exercise, and then when you're finished with that, you'll come back to the video and the cycle will repeat. So I'll do another little grammar lesson, give you some instructions, and you'll do another exercise until you get all the way to the end of the packet. So you'll kind of be going back and forth between the video and the review packet that hopefully you have sitting in front of you. Okay? This will be due Thursday at the end of the period, alright? I have something else prepared for you for Friday, but 2 full periods should be more than enough time to get this review finished. Alright, so let's take a look at some of the topics that we'll be covering in this review. The first one is verb conjugation. Alright, so some of you may already feel kind of comfortable with verb conjugation, but it's always a good idea to practice because the faster you can conjugate a verb, the more native you're going to sound when you're speaking, the higher your accuracy is going to be in presentational writing, and things like that. All right, so verb conjugation is super, super important in Spanish, and you can never have enough practice of it. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is verb phrases. So that would be like your ir plus a plus infinitive, acabar de. We're going to look at poder and querer, which were some of our new verbs from last semester. Then for the third topic, we'll work with days and time, so like specific phrases that you'll need to use when expressing days and time, or like making plans based on a specific day, things like that. And the fourth topic we'll look at is creating new language, which is a novice high skill. So for those of you that were in the novice mid 2 to novice mid 3 region, that'll be something you'll really want to focus on because that will be a skill you'll need to have in order to bump up to the next level. Okay, so kind of being able to take the things you know and create it into new sentences and new language and things like that. As you can see, the topics kind of go in order from like basic to more and more complex as you go down. So, but if you feel like at a certain point you need to do a little bit more practice on verb conjugation or verb phrases, I have no problem with that. You will have until the end of the period tomorrow to finish this review packet. And even if you don't have it completely finished, but you can show me, hey, I went back and did an extra practice on verb conjugation, I wrote some extra sentences related to verb phrases, and things like that, then I won't have a problem, as long as you can show me that you were productively working on some type of review for the whole period today and tomorrow. Okay, so that's what I'll be looking for. Alright, let's take a look at verb conjugation. Just a quick reminder for you, this is something that I kind of saw popping up on the IPA, and I'm not sure if we just forgot to go back and reread, or it's something that maybe we just, for some reason, didn't remember from Spanish 1. But whenever you have a subject pronoun, so that's like yo, tú, nosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas, whatever it may be, and a verb comes right after it, it needs to be conjugated. Okay, so you're not going to use the infinitive form right after the subject pronoun. Okay, so if you look at my examples here, the bullet points have yo soy instead of yo ser. Obviously, tú juegas instead of tú jugar. Okay, so again, we have the conjugated form of jugar there with tú. Miguel estudia y Carla y yo escribimos. Okay, so just a quick reminder there, something to watch out for in future writing and things like that. All right, so your first assignment, las instrucciones dicen, the instructions say, conjugate the verb in parentheses to match the subject. The verbs with an asterisk are irregular. Then write the translation in English. So if you look at my example here, it says, Miguel y yo no. Okay, and then I have a blank. So what I would do is I'll look at Miguel y yo, and I know I need to conjugate that with tener. Okay, so I know that I can replace Miguel y yo with nosotros. Okay, those are interchangeable. They mean the same thing. And that would be the pronoun that you would use if you didn't want to say Miguel y yo over and over again. Okay, and so I know I need nosotros, and then I look at the version of tener that matches with nosotros, and that's tenemos. Okay, so then I have Miguel y yo no tenemos, which then you can see the English translation there. Michael and I don't have. Or you could have kept it as Miguel. That's not a big deal either way. So that's what you're going to do for the next 12 little sentences or phrases there, I think. And then after that, you can come back to this video and we'll work on some verb charts and things like that. Alright, so hopefully you're finished with assignment 1. Again, if you have any major questions with that, you can ask me when I get back on Monday or shoot me a quick email. I might get a chance to answer them and get back to you before then. The next thing we're going to look at is verbs, okay? Specifically stem-changing verbs or boot verbs, which we looked at these last semester, but we'll do a quick review and hopefully this will kind of refresh your memory and cement it even more in your brain so that, again, these verbs will just pop out in the right conjugations in the heat of the moment, okay? So let's look at jugar. I can't remember if we added this to your verb chart or not, so that's why I have this one here, and then hopefully you can fill in the other two on your own. Okay, so looking at jugar, we know that it's a stem changer verb, which means that this part, the part before the AR ending, so in this case, the JUG, is going to change in certain conjugations of the verb, okay? So if we look at yo juego, we can see that the U changes to an EU. And the reason why this is called a boot verb is because, as you can see from my lovely and accurate, beautiful drawing here, the verbs that are inside this boot shape are the ones that will change stems. The ones outside the verb, outside the boot will not change stems. So you can see yo juego, the stem changed. Tú juegas, stem change with the AS ending. You can see él, ella, usted juega. Again, stem change, A ending. Okay, now we're over to nosotros, outside the boot. So the stem is going to stay the same as in the infinitive. Okay, nosotros jugamos, vosotros jugáis, ellos juegan, ellas juegan, ustedes juegan, back inside the boot. Okay, so again, pause the video here, take a second to do querer and poder, and I just want to challenge you guys really quickly to do this as much as you can without relying on that verb chart that we made. Okay, the more that you rely on that, the more you're going to be tied to it when it comes to an IPA style exam or something like that, okay? But the more that you challenge yourself to take a second and think about it, the more it's really going to be cemented in your brain what those conjugations are with the specific pronouns. All right, so take a second, pause this video. You can do the verb charts and then come back to the video. Alright, so the next section you guys have in your packet should look something like this, okay? You're creating your own sentences using poder, querer, jugar, etc. But I'm actually going to have you guys hold off on that for just a second, okay? And we'll come back to this in a little bit. Alright? A quick reminder about verb conjugation. If you are still struggling with verb conjugation or you think that you could just use a little bit more practice, some study ideas for you are Conjuguemos. It's an awesome website. It has games and online flashcards and all kind of cool stuff on there. Another thing would be making your own flashcards, whether that's physical or online like Quizlet or one of those. Or you can practice writing verb charts, okay? So find whatever way works best for you to kind of continue working on verb conjugation and things like that. All right? Okay, the next section we're going to look at is verbs and verb phrases. One section down, a few more to go. Okay, we'll look at five verb phrases and 3 commonly misused verbs. The first verb phrase we're going to look at is with querer. Okay, so you'll notice it's conjugated and it's a stem changer. Don't forget about that. And the important thing here is that querer is followed immediately by an infinitive. Okay, so you don't need any kind of preposition and de, nothing like that. Okay, so just querer, conjugated, and then the infinitive form of the verb after, which again, the infinitive is the AR, ER, or IR verb. So you can see in my examples, yo quiero jugar baloncesto. Querer is conjugated, immediately followed by an infinitive. In the next example, nosotros no queremos hacer ejercicio el sábado por la mañana. Okay? Again, querer conjugated, infinitive right after. The The same thing is true with poder, looking at number 2. So poder is also immediately followed by an infinitive verb. So you can see in my examples there, yo no puedo ir a la fiesta mañana. Puedo is conjugated version of poder. Ir is an infinitive. Okay? Ustedes pueden hacer la tarea después de la escuela. Same thing there. Pueden is conjugated. Hacer is our infinitive. The next example, nosotros podemos pasear contigo el viernes por la noche. Podemos is our conjugated form of poder. Pasear is the infinitive. So anytime you're using querer o poder, it's going to be immediately followed by an infinitive verb, okay? I know we talked about this a little bit first semester, but I saw a lot of mistakes of this on the IPA, wanting to put in or they, or maybe just not knowing exactly how to handle querer and poder, so I thought we would go over it in this review, all right? The next verb phrase, these two are just pure review from last semester. Maybe you forgot on the IPA, or we need to just do a little better proofreading, or whatever the case may be. It's always good to do extra practice, all right, and this will be something that will help you for the future. So just a reminder, when we're using ir plus a plus infinitive, we're talking about going to do something in the future. And you need all three of those parts. So ir is going to be conjugated to match the subject, and then a, and then our infinitive form of the verb. So, por ejemplo, you can see in my first example, usted va a ir a cenar en Pizza Hut el jueves. Okay? So you can see va is our conjugated form of ir. We have a, and we have ir again as an infinitive, okay? In the second example, it says, María y Juliana no van a ir de compras con nosotras. Van a ir has all three parts. All right, the third example, después de la escuela hoy, ¿vas a jugar videojuegos? Okay, vas a jugar. Again, we have all three parts for saying going to do something, going to go, going to play, whatever the case may be. Okay? Our fourth verb phrase is acabar de, sorry, that's not correct, my first on the slide there. So it should say acabar de plus infinitive, but you can see in the examples what it's actually supposed to be like. Okay, so our first example says, yo acabo de tomar un examen en la clase de español. So acabo is conjugated, de, and then tomar are infinitive. Again, three parts. Acabar de, infinitive. The next example there, ellos acaban de ver una película. Acaban, conjugated form of acabar, de, and ver, all three parts. And the last verb phrase that we're going to look at is tener que, which I think you maybe touched on this in Spanish 1, but if not, we'll just do a quick review here. It's not too difficult. So you use tener que when you want to say they have to do something, okay? So in my first example, los estudiantes tienen que llegar a la escuela antes de las 8:10. Okay, so the students have to arrive at school before 8:10. All right, in the second example, it says, mi hermano tiene que hacer ejercicio a las 5. My brother has to exercise at 5 o'clock. Okay, so anytime you use tener conjugated followed by que, it means have to or must. So you'll see assignment 2, las instrucciones dicen, read the sentence. Write the number 1 through 5 of the rule that you will need to use in the sentence. Then translate the sentence from English to Spanish correctly using each of the verb phrases talked about in this video. Okay, so just a reminder here, the verb phrases that we looked at. Number 1 was querer plus infinitive. Number 2, poder plus infinitive. Number 3, ir plus a plus infinitive. 4, acabar de plus infinitive. And the fifth verb phrase we looked at was tener que with your infinitive. So you can see in my example there, you'll have a sentence like, he can go with me. Okay, and I see the word can in there. So if I look back up, number 2, poder plus infinitive is the grammar phrase that I'll need to use for this specific sentence. Okay, so I'll write number 2 to represent poder plus infinitive, and then I'll conjugate poder and put it together all in the sentence. So, él puede ir conmigo. He can go with me. All right, so you go ahead and do that for the rest of them, and then after that, we'll come back to the assignment we skipped. So you can pause the video at this point, and then I'll explain the next assignment in a second. Alrighty, so after you finish assignment 2, we're going to go back to the previous page and finish the assignment that we skipped during kind of the first section. So, las instrucciones dicen, create your own sentences using the subject pronouns and stem changing verbs given below. Make sure you conjugate the verbs correctly. So now you're creating your own sentences with poder, querer, jugar, and I think there may be one other that I'm missing right now. So for example, I see ustedes and poder. So I need to conjugate poder according to ustedes, my subject there. So you'll see in my sentence, ustedes pueden venir a mi casa mañana a las 3. So I just made up a sentence saying you can come to my house tomorrow at 3. And that's what you'll do for the rest of this assignment. So pause the video and then come back after that. Alright, so we've made it to topic 3 of 4, so you're almost there. Keep working hard. We'll go through this one quickly, and then you have one more after that. Alright, this topic we'll be talking about days and times, some common phrases associated with those, and kind of just ironing out some of those details. Alright, the first one is, whenever you're using a day in Spanish, it's typically going to be preceded by either el or los, depending on if you're talking about one specific day or something you do repeatedly on a specific day. So, for example, if you look at the bullet points there, you'll see el viernes voy a ir, which literally translates to the Friday I'm going to go. And that's just how they say it in Spanish. I know it sounds weird in English. It's not something that we do, but something we just have to get used to when using Spanish. Or the next one, me gusta ir a los partidos de baloncesto los sábados. So I like to go to basketball games on Saturdays. All right, and I have a bonus here for you. Another place you see the definite determiner used in Spanish, but not in English, is when you're using a noun after gustar. So I like cats in Spanish would literally be I like the cats, or me gustan los gatos. You can see the next example, a Julio le gustan los deportes. So Julio likes the sports. O te gusta el baloncesto? Do you like the basketball? Asking if someone likes to play basketball. All right. The next phrase we'll look at when using time is a las, number, de la, time frame, or part of the day. Something important I want you to pay attention to here are the prepositions. So the a and the de and things like that, because those little words get easily confused. But the more that you use them correctly, again, you'll sound more native, your writing will look more native, things like that. So my examples, a las 2 de la tarde, at 2 in the afternoon, a la 1 de la mañana, at 1 in the morning. These next phrases are going to help you when you want to talk about a specific time during a specific day. Okay, so if you look at the first one there, it says el día por la, and then the time frame, which is if you're giving like a more general time. So if you say el sábado por la noche, it means sometime on Saturday night, something's going to happen, or you're going to do something, okay? The next example is almost exactly the same, but the only thing that changes is the preposition. So instead of por, you're going to say en. And these are kind of the two choices you have when dealing with this type of phrase, either por or en. Okay, so el día, en la, and then the time frame, is when there's a more specific pre-established time. So el sábado en la mañana would be like, oh, if you already have something scheduled at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, and you want to say, el sábado en la mañana voy a jugar baloncesto, and you already have that 10 o'clock time already set. Okay, so again, these are the two options you have, either el sábado por or el sábado en, okay, between those two prepositions. All right, and the last one we're going to look at is either el o este fin de semana, which is the weekend or specifically this weekend. So you can see the example, este fin de semana tengo que hacer mucha tarea. This weekend I have to do lots of homework. So this will be another super useful phrase when you want to talk about making plans, daily schedules, time frames, and things like that. Okay, let's take a look at assignment 3. Las instrucciones dicen, using each of the 5 phrases that were reviewed in this video, write a short paragraph talking about the activities you do during a typical day or week. So the first one, el plus day. So if you're saying Friday, I do this, el viernes, blah, blah, blah. If you're giving a specific time, you want to say at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you would say a las 3 de la tarde. The next one, el día por la time frame, or el día en la in the time frame. Both of those are if you have a specific thing that's happening during a time frame during a specific day. Okay, so that's when you would use those two. And the last one, el fin de semana o este fin de semana, we'll be talking about the weekend. So you'll write a short paragraph using all 5 of these phrases and then come back to the video for the last section. Alright, so we've made it to topic 404, creating new language. And like I mentioned before, this is a novice high writing skill. So if you're at that novice mid range, this is something you'll really want to strive for on the next IPA so you can bump up to novice high. Okay, if you look at the part in bold, it says novice high writers are able to recombine learned vocabulary and structures to create simple sentences on very familiar topics. Okay, so now you're going past just the formulaic, practiced phrases that we do in class, like soy de, tengo however many años, me gusta, le gusta. Okay, that's very like formulaic and practiced. Now what you're going to do is take the tools that you have and try and recombine them in different ways to create new language. Okay, and one way you can do that is by using conjugated common AR, ER, or IR verbs. All right. So for example, I'll just give you a couple things here to kind of get the juices flowing and then you can take it from there. You could say, los miércoles llevamos rosa. On Wednesdays, we wear pink. You could say, tú siempre llegas a la escuela a las 7:45 de la mañana. You always arrive to school at 7:55 in the morning. Ustedes no toman muchos exámenes en la clase de español. You don't take a lot of tests in Spanish class. Yo aprendo mucho en la clase de biología. I learn a lot in biology. Okay, so for looking at these last 2 examples I gave you, instead of saying, me gusta la clase de español, no me gusta la clase de biología, o la clase de español es fácil. Okay, now I'm kind of using verbs to give a little bit more information and go past those formulaic sentences. All right, mis abuelos vean una película cada día a las 7:30. So again, instead of saying, a mis abuelos les gusta ver una película o algo así, or something like that, you're giving a little bit more information and going past the me gusta, le gusta, and things like that. That's what will help you bump up to novice high. Another idea is by incorporating dependent or subordinate clauses. Well, what is a dependent clause? A dependent clause provides additional information but cannot stand alone as a sentence. So again, a couple ideas to kind of get these juices flowing. You could say, después de la escuela hoy, so saying after something happens, before something. You can say, cuando tengo tiempo libre, so when I have free time, or using other kind of quantifiers, using the words like before, after, when, things like that. You can expand on sentences by saying por qué, or saying because. For example, no me gusta ir al gimnasio porque siempre tengo hambre después de hacer ejercicio. So I'm kind of adding some more information to my sentences instead of choppy little formulaic phrases and things like that. All right, so for assignment 4, the instrucciones say, for each of the following topics, write 3 to 5 sentences that focus on incorporating the phrases and skills for creating new language that were mentioned in this review. Be creative and challenge yourself. Okay, so you're going to write a couple sentences about tu mejor amigo o amiga, your best friend. Write sentences about las estaciones y o el tiempo, so the seasons or weather. And then write some sentences about los deportes or sports. But try and keep in mind these types of rules. So in this exercise, I want you to kind of try to avoid the ella es alta, ella tiene el pelo moreno, or whatever. Okay, go a little bit above and beyond and try and use some of those conjugated verbs, use some dependent clauses, and things like that. All right, so do your best, challenge yourself, and then when you're finished with this, you're all done for today. You can go ahead and turn your paper into the tray, and then tomorrow I'll have another exercise for you on Friday, that is. All right, so I'll see you guys on Monday.